Workplace pensions and auto-enrollment. I'm going to be going through what is a workplace pension, why are workplace pensions important, how do workplace pensions even work, and also what are the legal requirements for workplace pensions, whether you're an employee or an employer. As workplace pensions, or what most people refer to when they think about this, is auto-enrollment, which haven't been around very long at all, since 2012. It's still quite a new area for people to quite grasp. And as it was introduced quite slowly. And as such, it kept changing and people couldn't keep up with what am I supposed to be receiving in my pension? What's my employer going to contribute? But now that has settled for some number of years now, we can set the foundations of going, right, these are what we need to look at when we're talking about workplace pensions. So what are they? In the UK, you have two overarching headers with workplace pensions. You will have a defined contribution and you will have a defined benefit. Now, the two run quite a bit different. Yes, they fall under the banner of pensions, but other than that, they start to separate off and the differences are quite profound. Firstly, a defined benefit. For instance, things like NHS pension, military pension, police pension, or fire service pension, public service or government, or even some big corporate companies used to offer these, and they are very few and far between now to be able to actually get hold of them. However, it's where, in simple terms, you will be given a benefit at the point of retirement, not a pot of money like you will with a defined contribution. So this means you will pay into the pension in some cases, or if you're in the military, they'll contribute on your behalf. And over time, you will build up benefits towards that pension. So there's one big, large pension pot that particular organization manages and everyone pays into. And then when you hit the golden retirement, you will then essentially be able to be given an amount you're eligible for each month from that pension to see you through for the rest of your life. Woo! So this could be based on a final salary, which is what most people refer to these as, a final salary pension. You will then receive an income from that based on what your final salary was and your years of service and what the accrual rate was for your pension. So all of these come together in quite a complicated formula. In summary, you'll be able to see what your benefits are to then be able to calculate, they should tell you what the income is going to be. You can choose to commute some of your pension, which means you'll take a tax-free lump sum of 25% of your value of your pension as a lump sum, and then the remaining will be then given as an income. By doing this, you do shift the parameters of what you will receive. So if you take a tax-free lump sum of X, you will receive a lower amount of your income. Planning out which one you want to do and how that might fit in with your retirement planning can be really helpful. But in simple terms, they're a benefit that you're guaranteed for the rest of your life that you will receive. And then once you've essentially passed away, you'll no longer receive that pension. There is benefit to where you can pass it on to a spouse and things, but it's checking the more intricacies of your pension to see if you can do that. Defined benefit can really underpin a good retirement because it is guaranteed for life along with your state pension. Now, going on to defined contribution, which is where auto-enrollment really started to kick in and people started to have things such as nest pensions and people's pensions and all different ones. Doesn't have to be just those that can then really kickstart your retirement planning. With defined contribution pensions, this is where you have your own pot of money that you're expected to manage. So all the employer is obligated to do is pay a minimum contribution into that pension along with your contribution plus the tax relief. And then once that's all wrapped together, that will then give you what your minimum contribution is of 8% total into your pension each year. Now, after the employer has paid into that, that's really where their obligation ends. So you have to then make sure that you're in the correct funds, also that it's performing as you so desire. And also, is that going to be enough in later life? So you may have to look to top this up, do something else towards it. Ask the employer if they will contribute more for you. Will they match contributions or will they match up to a certain level? Because if you're willing to put in more, will they match you? That can be really good in really compounding and help fast track towards your pension growth. One thing to note with defined contributions is once you actually get to the point of retirement, you can take these in various different ways, but you need to make sure that that pot of money is going to sustain you through to your retirement because there is no guarantee for life. Once that pension pot runs out, you are left with no money. So making sure you have a stable income stream from that pension or a plan to map that out is quite key with defined contributions, because it's not as easy of knowing you're going to have an exact set amount per month. You could draw down the whole pension pot if you really wanted to, in what's known as an UF plus. You can actually purchase an annuity. An annuity will give you a guaranteed income for life. So you do have a little bit more flexibility with a defined contribution than a defined benefit, because you can choose where you want it to be invested. You can choose what types of funds you want it to be in. Granted, if the employer says that by moving it, we're not going to contribute anymore, then you're best off leaving it where it is. However, if they are willing to allow you to move it and shift it and change things for your benefit and still give you the contributions, this can be a real bonus in producing a good retirement pot. And some people might have a mix of both, might have done a job previously that gives them one type of pension and the other. And overall, you can then actually manage your retirement to see what that's going to look like using a mix of different pensions. Why are they so important? Well, simply put, the government is only designed the state pension to be used for a third of an adult's working life. So as people are getting older, technological advances are meaning that people have been able to live longer. That means they're having to push back that state pension age, which means for younger generations, their pension is further and further away. Now, having a workplace pension can mean that you can pull that date back a little bit so that you can potentially use your pension pot to kick in early leading up to your state pension, as your retirement age on your personal pensions will typically be a little bit shorter at the minute 55, and they'll be going up to 57, whereas state pension is 67 to 68, depending on your date of birth and age. So it gives you a bit more freedom in being able to use your workplace pension alongside state pensions and other defined benefit pensions to really have you some control on when you want to retire. Without this, and the benefits that are legally obligated by employers to contribute towards your pension, most people wouldn't do it. Whereas the rate in which people are choosing to stay opted into the pensions now is a lot more great than it is for the people that are opting out. Even with workplace pensions, there still is a bit of a shortfall for most people on being able to actually retire when they would truly want to. So you can top those provisions up yourself, or ask again the employer to bolster that up if they would be willing to do so. But at least this forms an initial start in being able to really build up your funds. That's just done automatically before you see your pay, so that that can just go straight into the pension and you can let that compound and grow over time. If you're an employer, the thing that you can use is this as an employee incentive, having a good pension package. And if you're willing to contribute a little bit more into that and actually choose a provider that's got a good level of service, all of this can be seen as an added benefit to the employee to build that loyalty, to help promote your business. So seeing it from both sides can be quite advantageous from both parties. How do workplace pensions even work? Well, they're set up when you start a new employment by the employer, so that when you pay from your salary, a proportion of this, as in the case of an employee, would be 4%. Then the employer contributes 3%, and then you get 1% tax relief. So overall, 8% has to go into your pension. Now, if the employer is willing to pay the full 8% for you, brilliant. You don't have to contribute anything at that point. It has to be a minimum of 8%, but the employer is legally obligated to contribute 3% as a minimum. They will choose and select what the provider is. So again, it could be Nest, the People's Pension, that could be with Royal London, it could be with Aviva. They can choose who they want it to be to administer. Now, if you can look to move that or switch the funds or have some kind of control over that, that can be quite a big help. But I'd always check with the employer to see if by doing this, they're going to then stop paying that extra contribution. Yes, they're legally obligated to do that, but if you choose to move, you will essentially be opting out of that pension. So just make sure that by moving or potentially switching any of the funds, you're not going to be at a detriment of losing that free legally obligated money that you're going to get from an employer. You can opt out if you really didn't want this pension or an auto-enrollment pension to kickstart. You can choose to opt out. And after a set period of time, the employer will be legally obligated to ask you again, do you want to opt back in? Or they're obligated to see if you want to opt out again at a later period down the line. They're legally obligated to make sure that you're automatically enrolled. But by opting out, that means that you will lose the employer contribution. and the tax relief, yes, you will save yourself the 4% that's going into your pension, but you're not really saving yourself because you're taking away essentially from your future self. So you're not saving any money. You're just taking money now that could have been used to grow at a later date. But if you need that money now, you can choose to opt out. It'll just be a thing that you'll have to regularly opt out as and when the employer automatically assumes, because they have to, that you're opted back in. The consequences are vast if an employer decided that they didn't want to pay into a pension and you actually wanted to opt in. They can be great. It's extremely rare for employers not to do this because it's an automatic legal obligation that they have to do and make sure that all their employees, when they reach a certain limit, are auto enrolled into a pension. So there's some of the key points that we've gone through. What is a pension? Why pensions important? How do workplace pensions work? And also, what are the legal requirements? A few key takeaways I would say would be: check to see if you are auto enrolled and you haven't opted out or asked to opt out because you wasn't aware at the time. So rechecking this can be key. If you don't ask, you don't get, I always say. So why not ask the employer to see if they would match contributions at all? Because you might be surprised that they're willing to put in a little bit more for you, which can have such a profound effect later on and over the years. And also, taking a bit of ownership of your pension pot and your retirement earlier can have a real benefit. Just having a look at it and going, right, I have these several pension pots, or I have this employer pension pot, so that you can oversee it and actually have a little bit of autonomy. And it can be quite exciting. I mean, I would say that I'm a financial advisor, but you can look into it and think, oh, I'm actually in that fund, and do a bit of research. And you might decide I want to take a little bit more risk with that pension or that fund so that you can yield potentially slightly more returns. Or you might think, actually, it's been going up and down quite a bit. I want it a bit more stable and take a step back. Make your pension suit you, because if it's a defined contribution one, it's your responsibility to check it. The employer will just give you the money and then it's your responsibility. So whether it's your current employer or a past employer, it's worth having a hunt down, seeing what your pensions are doing or what they have done, maybe what the performance looks like and who they're held with, and then see what you'd like to do with those and what they're looking like to forecast you for your retirement, because it's your hard-earned money to make sure that you have the retirement you deserve.